And welcome to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. Here we are, the boys, back again for another conference preview podcast. One of our favorites, of course, as we get oh so near to the actual season. I think we're 3 weeks away, fellas. That is very exciting. It is October 17th. The season starts on 11
Four.
4
Yes.
Very excited. And we're excited to talk Big 12 today. The big, bad Big 12. Best conference in America, Matthew? Question mark. Well, Ken Pom, I think, has SEC number one so far this year in his preseason algorithm.
SEC. Yep. We'll say Big 12 just to drum up some interest for this podcast, but behind closed doors, I'll tell you it's the SEC. By a nose, Kai, by a nose.
Yes, Ken Pom, actually, they're very close. If you look at the little numbers in Ken Pom, extremely close. My own rankings, I think I have the Big 12 like by a hair. So it's like neck and neck, Big 12 SEC, Jim.
Love that, Kai. I think, actually, I haven't looked at my averages, so I'm not even going to speculate. But I have a trivia question for you guys.
Okay.
Yes.
When was the last time the Big 12 had 12 teams in it? It has had 10, it has had 14, it now has 16. What year, what college basketball year did the Big 12 most recently have 12 teams?
Early 2000s. Am I way off?
Oh,
I mean, that's a pretty vague
2004.
guess.
2004.
Kai, what do you think?
didn't it have it when we were in college? 2012?
2011
Okay.
was the last year.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
close.
Utah, Colorado left a year before Mizzou went to the SEC.
Yes.
So that's
yes.
when they had 12. Boom. There
Very
you go.
good trivia
So when
as
you
far
guys
as
were
that.
there, Colorado had just, okay, that makes sense. Huh.
Colorado left our like junior year of college. Yep.
Yes. So, anyways, welcome. Big 12 preview. Here we go. Team by team breakdowns. We'll do Roots Roundup to start, little news and notes section. One review. At the end of the podcast, we will save 3MW_CDB. That's where you can find us on Twitter and on Instagram. Please do follow us there. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do these shows live every single week on YouTube. Of course, they'll be there to watch forever. But if you will join us, like the video and subscribe, that would help us a ton. And finally, our Discord with Trilly Donovan has been incredible the last few months. Great college basketball community, chatting it up. If that's not your thing, well, guess what? You can still get access to our written previews through the Discord. BurnerExclusives.com is where all of our previews are rolling out. We will have a preview on every single conference, every single team. I believe we're about 3/4 of the way there on releases on the site. Very exciting. So those come out pretty much daily now on weekdays. Be on the alert for new conferences.
Link in bio.
We are
link
deep
in description.
In the mid-major, low-major realm. Yes, the link to that site is in the YouTube video description, as well as the podcast description. That's it, fellas. That's the intro. Let's get into Roots Roundup news and notes.
Let's do it. Let's talk a little news and notes, get people updated on the goings-on of the sport. But before we do, we must give a quick shout out to one of our favorite sponsors, CBB Analytics, something we use constantly. And Matthew, we can give a big personal recommendation to here on the website.
Jim, no recommendation is more authentic than ours of CBB Analytics. Those who have subscribed and purchased our preview access can see those shot charts, heat maps, on-off splits, plastered all over our content. We hope coaches, fans alike are yearning the same insights so we are from that. Yes, it's the best 40,000, 50,000, 30,000 foot view of the CBB data landscape. As I mentioned, hyped up last time, a lot of the D2, D3 stats in there have been super helpful coming down the stretch here of some of these mid-majors and low majors who are mining for talent in those untapped wells of potential. Nick does a great job. He's continuing to roll out new features, so it'll get better and better as the months and years go on. Get in now. Get in cheap, Kai. $40 off a subscription. That's if you use our special promo code, WEAVE, WEAVE. Coaches, if you want access to the Holy Grail Pro tier, DM us, email us. We will set that up for you as well. That's cbbanalytics.com.
Well said, Matthew. The leading headline continues to be realignment. The big one now, Hawaii leaving the Big West for the Mountain West. Kai, kind of a big nothing shrug for me. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, they're already there for football, so why not make it a consistent?
Feels right.
Yeah, Haven't they been in the Mountain West? I guess not. Football kind of clouds my mind with conferences, but I feel like they used to be, but maybe not. I know they were in the WAC for a while.
Yeah, if you've already got, one foot in the bed, just climb all the way in with them. What are you
Get
waiting
in,
for?
get in the
All right.
bed.
Just get in,
Commit.
snuggle up with the Mountain West. Yeah, Kai, I think you're right. They were just whack, and the whack had like half the Mountain West teams
Right.
at one point, so it felt like the Mountain West. It's always ever changing out there. That is your realignment update of the week. In recruiting news, Matthew, your Duke Blue Devils shine brightest once again. The Boozer twins are headed to
Booze.
Duke, following in Daddy's footsteps. Per some inside intel from Mr. Trilly Donovan, this was not as done a deal as maybe some people think, just seeing it in hindsight, like, oh, they're sons of Carlos Boozer. Of course they're going to go to Duke. But you get five-star Cam Boozer, number 2 recruit in the country behind AJ DeBonsa, and his twin brother Caden, a power forward, a point guard. You can bookend your lineup with these two. All they do is win, Matthew. Every single competitive EYBL event, they're a top. They won the Peach Jam. How excited are you more or less excited for the Boozers than Cooper Flag?
Tough. Oh, hey, shouts to Cooper Flag for pulling some strings to to get him there. I don't know, Jim. My thoughts are um I
Not
just feel bad
organized,
for
it sounds like.
I feel bad for everybody else, Jim. I do, because these guys are going to be awesome. Like they're all the way legit. They're like not shithead freshmen. They're just like really good dudes, and they, as you mentioned, their winning record is insane. Their talent's insane. It's the question is like, are they a truly generational talent? Or are they just like the default number 1, number 2 pick? And I think the consensus is like, no, these guys have a chance to be like generational talents, like closer to like Cooper Flag this year, if you think he's in that class, closer to, I don't know, Kate Cunningham, Anthony Davis, like
I don't think
closer.
that's true
No,
of both of them. I think that's true of Cam.
of
I
Cam
think
is, yeah, Cam's a step above,
Caden,
I think, the Caden.
yeah,
Yeah.
Caden doesn't quite have. I mean, he's like consummate winner. You want him as your college point guard. I don't know if he's like the generational pro prospect the way Cam is, just because he's smaller and can't bring
Yeah,
the
he's not
same
as big.
versatility.
Yep.
Yep. But yes, Duke keeps winning on the recruiting path. It's kind of fun because every single year you're going to be like, all right, Shire's really got to do it this year because his roster's loaded. And
He's
he keeps
creating
putting
the,
them. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
right.
Puts himself in
The,
this bind of having ludicrously talented rosters, which is a pretty good problem to have. I think he'll be all right. UConn also nabbed a top 25 recruit yesterday. 4-star center Eric Reeby headed to the Huskies. And guys, I saw his interview and it just felt very Hurley-esque that he said, "I'm so pumped to be an effing Husky," and he actually, dropped the F bomb. It's like, okay, yeah, you should play for Dan Hurley. If you're in an interview and you're that fired up, that's probably where you belong, Kai. It seems like a good fit between those two.
Congrats, Dan. Way to go.
Arizona also grabbed a top 30 recruit, small forward Dwayne Aristote. I believe he's of foreign descent. I want to say I saw that he'd played a professional season, but I might not be exactly right there. I was impressed with the limited tape I saw of him. Michigan State, Villanova, Miami, LSU, St. Mary's, Oklahoma, all grabbed prospects from 50 to 100. Jordan Scott, shooting guard, Sparty. Dante Allen, small forward to Villanova, a teammate in AAU of the Boozers. So another big winner, a guy I really liked watching when I tuned into Peach Jam this offseason. Dante Allen can really play. Ben Ahmed, a center to Miami. Jim Larinaga recruits centers. This is strange. I feel like he's always on the guard trail. Jalen Reese to LSU, point guard Dylan Shaw to St. Mary's, the Gales. Feels like Randy Bennett's improving the recruiting.
I
Maybe
think it's 3 straight years where they've gotten a top 100 guy, at least one, and they got 2, I think, in just 2 cycles ago. Mahaney was in that ilk.
It's like a trickle down effect almost of the portal, maybe seemingly helping them. But as you thought, like, oh, is Randy Bennett going to sail off into the sunset? No, he's dialed in on the recruiting trail, and St. Mary's is finding a way to reel in legitimate players that, hey, you give Randy Bennett talent, he's going to win. And then Oklahoma, Kai Rogers, 4-star center, number 92 prospect, the Sooners. Also getting into the Roots Roundup section here, recruiting world. Guys, we do have to mention one injury. There were a couple this week, but one at the power conference level. Fortunately, Lassina Traore, the transfer from Long Beach State, headed to Xavier, is out for the season. I believe it was announced as a knee injury. I don't think they gave the specifics, but this just is not a safe place for big men. You look at Fremantle and Hunter last year. Now Traore. Kai, if you are 6'10" or above, why would you dare setting foot on the Xavier campus?
Gosh, man, this program's cursed. It's like when it rains, it pours. It reminds me of like when Oregon went through all their injuries, and what other teams just had like year after year. Certain teams have consistent injury bad luck, and unfortunately Xavier's gone through this. Now they have the depth this year to make up for it if Hunter's healthy, but still a big blow. He's a heck of a rebounder, Traore.
Yep, I do think Jerome Hunter got cleared. The Rothstein had put out a tweet that he would be cleared for all basketball related activities on September 24th. That was like 3 weeks before September 24th. I never saw official confirmation of it, but seemingly should be back in there. Gives them that front court depth behind Fremantle with Hughley. Matt, you remember how important Hunter was for Xavier down the stretch last time he was healthy. So yeah, big time to get him back in the lineup.
They need some gritty in there. They need some gritty. I also, should we report on John Hughley's weight loss? Apparently lost over like 25, 30 pounds. Probably figures to be a
svelte.
A factor.
He's one of the, like people say, oh, they're in such great shape. They either lost or gained 20 pounds, whatever. Like I saw visual evidence of it for him. Now he was starting from a place that probably was
really good before after, side by side. Yeah. Great juxtaposition there. Totally.
So, hey, if he's going to need to play a lot bigger minutes without Traore, that is massively important. So good to see that. Other random news and notes, guys, was it weird for Rick Pitino, the sitting head coach of St. John's, to be at Kentucky for Big Blue Madness? Kai says yes immediately.
I think it's incredibly bizarre. How do you not think this is weird? You're a sitting coach of St. John's. What are you doing, Rick Pitino?
No, it's fine. It's fine. Him and Mark, it's like you recruited a player, like Pope and him have a good relationship. You coached a player, you recruited him, you love him, and you see him get like the flagship job that you coached him at. That's cool. It was a Pope thing. I'm fine with it.
That's look at me, Pitino.
It's fine with it.
That's Pitino hanging around the program like, remember me?
Yeah, and trying to like ingratiate. You left for Louisville, or you were at Louisville, like, so, probably trying to get back in their good graces. Matt, I think if he had done it over the summer, I'd be totally down with it. Like if he was at the introduction press conference, but like there's practice going on right now and he's like addressing the team.
I'm assuming he didn't completely shuffle the current practice schedule, but if he did, which I guess you're right, given the timing, he probably had to make some sort of sacrifice in that regard. That's not a great look. If he was at Louisville and did this, it'd be like a little bit like WTF, but he's at St. John's. I don't mean to like belittle the prominence of St. John's, but just like, I don't know. How much beef does St. John's have with Kentucky? I can't imagine a lot. So
I'm just saying, if I played for Rick Pitino, I'd be like, dude, what
the hell
are you doing? Yeah. Like maybe focus on us.
Cheating on him.
That's our second get in bed reference of the podcast here.
Emotional cheating is still cheating, Kai. Emotional cheating is still, that's what I've been told. So
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Matt, you wouldn't know from experience. Oh, come on.
Yeah, no, okay. It's just that Bravo background noise, Shim. I just get all these lovely nuggets that I have to write down. So yeah,
that's one of my. I'm glad I don't experience that currently. Okay, exhibition game results to quick react to. These are ones we actually got to watch some of. So gonna be curious if you guys have any thoughts. UConn beat Rhode Island pretty soundly. It was a little bit competitive early, but Solomon Ball, solo ball, looked like a beast, looked like the next great UConn perimeter star. Aiden Mahaney was efficient off the bench. Kai, there's no Donovan Clingan in the middle. They looked a little bit mortal inside. Javonte Brown kind of ate them up in the first half, but I feel like we can be justified with having UConn where we have them. Top five.
Really good team still. Rhode Island hung with them for a full half, like really hung.
Rhodey looked good,
and same with UTSA and USC. They hung with them, but both better teams extended at the end of the game, and they ended up winning by 20 plus. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't crown UConn from this game. Rhode Island is a bottom tier A10 team this season, but they are.
Oh, I disagree.
Oh, they are. They're bottom half for sure. And
we did an A10 preview. Had them like 11th or 12th.
UConn
I guess they're close. Yeah,
UConn looked really good. Yeah. That's full stop. They look great. Of course they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that just I was like, oh yeah, it's UConn with the very first possession that had, I think, Liam McNeely either in the left corner of the left wing, and he wrapped around off 2 pin downs and came off for a curl layup, and was like, oh yeah, they run really good stuff. And Luke Murray's still there, and Kamani Young's still there, and they're going to continue to maximize players and put them in great positions to succeed. So regardless of who's on the roster, they're going to be solid. I still think the interior defense is going to end up being a little bit of a question mark. I was not impressed with Terrace Reed's debut. UNC won at Memphis. This is a true road game. Pretty impressive here. RJ Davis did not play. Memphis did not have Musa Cisse, so one of their interior presences was not able to go for this one. But Matt, Seth Trimble. Whoa, holy star turn. I think you've got to
Yeah.
shove him into the starting lineup alongside Cadeau and Davis. We already knew Trimble was a very good
Yes.
defender, but for him to see this kind of show this kind of offensive potential was super impressive. And I'll also slip in Jalen Washington looked pretty darn good for
Yeah, he
UNC
did.
at the center spot.
UNC will be better than, yeah, I'm kind of reassessing my UNC prognosis, which I'll advise the rest of the listeners to not do based on exhibition games. But I mean, Trimble, if he's like a real piece, that sort of quells any like, oh, Elliot Cadeau can't shoot and you can scheme against him types of concerns. And then Memphis, a little bit, talented, but kind of the standard disarray Memphis. Like Memphis is usually chaotic, but then Memphis in an exhibition game with a whole new team was like super duper chaotic. And I think that was it kind of showed a little bit.
And a whole new staff, right? Like,
And a whole new
Yes.
staff. Nolan Smith, Mike
They
Davis.
looked like a team that
coach
had
just
not
left. Yeah.
been coherent for more than a couple weeks. There was some lazy defensive stuff from Memphis. Matt,
I'll add Jared Harris to the freshman watch list for Memphis. Like, legitimately could be a real player.
the last like 5 minutes, it was like, oh, why hasn't this guy been playing the whole
Right.
game? Like everywhere defensively, clearly a big, long athlete. Yeah, I was not surprised with the lineup that made a run at the end of the Memphis game.
The one without Tyrese Hunter and the one with Jared Harris. Yeah.
Yeah, with Harris, with Okogie as kind of a pressure defender. Yeah, I think that'll be a better look. Hunter, not as good of a compliment to Haggerty, who we want to be the perimeter alpha on that team. Don't we, Matt? We agree?
Yes, I think so. I'd like it to be balanced, though, Jim. I think balance would be good for this team.
Okay. All right.
I think it'd be healthy.
There's also been some scrimmage results floating out. We don't get to watch those, so it's a little harder to put stock in them. You don't know why things are happening, if there's shooting splits, if they're doing bizarre situations. So we're not gonna dwell on those, but did want to mention the ones we got to actually get an eye test on. So shout out to UConn, UNC. Kyle, you watched a little bit of USC, UTSA. Did you have anything from that one?
I didn't really watch it. I watched Michigan State against that D2 team, though.
Northern Michigan. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Michigan State, they're really big. The D2 team is small, but Michigan State is going to go jumbo with Zapala, and Booker up front is interesting.
Jumbo. Love that. Play them with Cohen Carr and just say, spacing, we don't care about you. We're not interested. Okay, that's it for Roots Roundup, Kai. Let's get to the 16-team Big 12.
Yes, sir. Strap in, boys. Here we go. The Big 12. Yes, for my money, still the best conference in America. It will be until it's unseated. There's just a little bit more dead weight at the bottom, we'll say, and that's no offense to the teams coming in, but this season, a lot of incoming teams, with the exception of Arizona, are experiencing a little trough in their journey right now, we'll say. They lose Oklahoma and Texas, the Big 12, due to the SEC. They bring in Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah from the Pac-12. Here are my standings, fellas. We'll go through standings. I don't know if I need to go through the all-conference. If you want to see that, go to burnerexclusives.com, but I will give my player of the year, etc. with those, just so we can get through the multiple teams here. And any standings qualms, fellas, please do address during the team preview sections. Also, I peeked at KenPom, which I hate to do before I'm done with ratings.
I did too.
Kind of aligned with this standings, which is either good or bad. It probably means there's no bets to be had right now. But here we go. Tier 1. Houston, number 1 for me. Kansas is 2. Iowa State is 3. Arizona 4. And Baylor 5. Those 5 teams could literally be top 10 teams in the country. It is the strongest top 5 in the country of any conference.
I believe they were all in the top 10 of the AP poll, and it's the first time a conference has ever had half the top 10 in the history of the AP poll.
Yeah.
So how about that? Maybe the first time in the history of the preseason AP poll, but it was like a momentous occasion because all 5 of these teams are awesome.
Insane. Also, all 5 top 11 in KenPom preseason. Baylor's 11. Tier 2 for me, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, Kansas State, BYU, and TCU. Really feel good about Texas Tech, Cincy. Kansas State, BYU, TCU are more wild cards to me, but I think they're in this tier pretty solidly. And then finally, tier 3, a jumble. Literally mix these up how you want, and I'll agree with you that's the order, but here's what I chose. 11 West Virginia, 12 Arizona State, 13 UCF, 14 Colorado, 15 Oklahoma State, and 16 Utah is how I went there. It is a total Rorschach test in the tier 3.
Yeah, that's like throw a bunch of dice in a cup, shake them up, roll them like you're playing Yahtzee, and just however it comes out. I do think I agree with West Virginia as the top of that group. That's all I'll say right now.
Perfect. Okay, player of the year. Again, all conference, burnerexclusives.com. Go there. Player of the year. I went with Hunter Dickinson for Kansas. Strict on the court thing. Don't like the guy personally. Coach of the year. Kelvin Sampson. Goodness gracious.
Kevin Sampson.
I haven't had all my coffee yet. Kelvin Sampson from Houston. I think this team is historically good this season, and I will explain in my team preview kickoff here. And then newcomer of the year and freshman of the year, I'm going VJ Edgecombe from Baylor, continuing the long line of freshman success Scott Drew has had in recent years. Okay, Matt, should we go through the previews now?
Yes.
Let's do it. Houston.
Wow, Matt, with an authoritative one word.
I have so many takes on this conference. I'm
Really?
like overflowing with takes. Yes.
I love this. Houston might be one of the best preseason teams ever, in my opinion. I'm shocked that they're not number one in the AP poll. In my opinion, they should be unanimously number one. They are unanimously number one in Bartorvik, KenPom, most computer sites. Everyone's back from a team that was basically a Final Four team. They're Elite Eight. Their best player got hurt. He's gone. That's a big takeaway for sure. But you add Milos Uzan from Oklahoma, a guy with a lot of potential who I think will thrive in the system. Matt, they're deep. They're tough. The defense will be number one or number two in the country. It's a given. How are they not number one is my question. You don't have
They are
I think.
Yeah, I did not, and I might regret that. I do think this team has a Kelvin last 2 years, second in KenPom, and then fifth in 2020. So he literally hasn't been worse than a top five team, hasn't been worse than second the last few years. I think I think there's a chance they don't get in the top five this year. The point guard play Jim worries me. Like, we're not worried about
bet you
me too.
now.
The point guard play really bothers me. It's obviously an awesome team. Okay, so it's probably a top five team. I think this is the one chance where I think they have a slight risk of falling into, like, dare I say, the seventh or sixth best team. They're not finishing worse than top 10. I'm not saying that at all. This is simply in a league, in an era where you have a ton of really high-end top talent across the board, SEC, Big 12, we'll get to some other teams in a second. I think with the point guard risk and how important Shed was, I do see one of the lower floors I've seen under Sampson the last 5 years, which again is the highest floor in the country. I'm just saying relative to Sampson's normal floor, it's a little bit more brittle than usual. That's all I'm going to say. That's it.
I'm not on board. I think I'm like,
they are deep though. They are deep. They are super deep.
They're going to be top three in defense, probably number one. Like, I would say it's a coin flip chance they are the number one defense in the country. And that's like ludicrous to be 50-50 to be that good with their big man rotation of Francis, Roberts, and Tugler, all mobile guys with 7'3" wingspans. I think Tugler's just like 7'6". They can block shots. They can switch. They can trap. Uzan's a little longer than Shed in the backcourt. Maybe not the same instincts and insane work rate, but the defense is so clearly going to be awesome. Now, Matt, I do have a little concern with Uzan getting the same consistency of paint touches as Shed. He basically could get in the lane whenever he wanted and get a floater up or get something on the glass that the big men could go chase. But they've got two elite shooters on the wing. Sharp and Cryer can both light it up. And Uzan, I think, is going to be better in the Houston system than he was at Oklahoma. That's basically happened with every guy that's transferred in here. Look at even Cryer, like, suddenly became an awesome defender after he gets under the tutelage of Sampson. So, Kai, I maybe the offense isn't 11th like it was last year. It's like 20th. But with the best defense in the country, I still think that's a top three team.
Yeah, I mean, I think Uzan's a great post-hype sleeper. Everyone thought he was going to break out last year. I think in this system he thrives. And you don't even, if you really want to, you can play Cryer or Malik Wilson on the ball. I mean, they have 9 guys back from last season. I know Shed's gone, but this team's going to be just fine, in my opinion, on the offensive end. They're still going to be a top 5 offensive rebounding team, right? They're going to get second chances like crazy.
Roberts and Francis are just, and then Arsenault coming back, so we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's our thoughts on Houston. Very, very good.
Good team.
We can all agree.
Good team.
Oh, yeah, Kai, for your post-type sleeper on Uzan, I should just say it on here. Like, I think playing next to McCollum was really weird for him at Oklahoma.
Yeah, sure.
Because McCollum needed the ball in his hands. Now it's really more his team. I think this sets up better for him.
So, Matt, do you have Kansas as your number one team in the Big 12, not Houston?
Yeah, I did choose Kansas, and even as I looked at that, I don't feel good about it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm souring on all the top teams in the Big 12. Like, they're obviously all really, really good, but I was sort of comparing them with the top teams of like the SEC, and I was like maybe going back to our SEC Big 12 stupid debate, that's where that was where my skepticism was coming from a relative standpoint.
Let's talk
I do
Kansas.
have KU one though.
Yeah, let's talk Kansas. Number 2 for me, number 1 for Matt. Number 1 in the AP poll. Reminder, Kansas finished 27th last year in KenPom. It was I think, second time in 5 years Self's been 27th, but the last time he finished 27th, they won the national title the following year. So don't worry too much, KU fans. Talent is out the wazoo on this roster. It might be the best looking starting 5 in college basketball on paper. Dickinson, Adams, Harris, incredible trio. Really smart ads with Storr and Griffin. I think Self filled some needs there. What do they get from Zeke Mayo, from Shaquille Moore? Jim, there's way more depth this year. That was one of the things that really hurt them last season. They have it this year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more depth in theory. Losing Marco Jackson is a little bit scary. You could see maybe Zeke Mayo not being as big of a home run addition. Like, I mean, everybody thought Timberlake was like a no-brainer, amazing shooter last year. We don't know for sure what his translation will be like, but this is Bill Self with a hyper-productive fifth-year interior scorer, 2 incredible role players, defenders, passers with Harris and with Adams. And then, yeah, you've got bites at the apple for stardom with Storr and Griffin for sure, and Mayo could possibly be on that level. It's a really good roster, man. I still have some questions about, like, you're locked into how you play defense with Dickinson. You have to play drop coverage. You're not going to really be able to change that. And even with McCullough, this team was like 15th to 18th in KenPom last year. It wasn't like when he got hurt, they suddenly dropped off a cliff. They were like 16-2 and still 16th in KenPom. I'd argue McCullough was not as important as Jamal Shed, but pretty close. And now they're like replacing him for a team that was 20th. I think number 1 is kind of crazy, if I'm being honest.
I just think the depth is. Last year was such a throwaway year for me with how strapped they were with depth. And I don't know if that was a function of Self, like, over managing the rotations, or just those guys that he picked up in the portal not really panning out. But like, everything was on the big 3 or the core 4, I guess. And it just ran them into the ground. And I know you lose one of those key pieces, but I think just the fact that now you have some shooting and some skill at that position is as important as McCullough was. And we'll see how they patch up the defense. I think the defense is going to be the key question for this team this year, right? Like, I think that was a key piece where McCullough thrived. You have Harris at the point of attack, who's a ball hawk, obviously. Adams defends. Dickinson, you're right, is scheme dependent, but he's still an effective defender with his length. I think he's smart. I like that Self just took big bets on shooting. I do. I'm worried about, maybe they're still a little too interior reliant in their scoring, their shot diet. That was kind of a big problem last year. They got no threes. They were kind of always at risk playing teams that shot more threes than they did. At least with Storr and Griffin and Zeke, who I've been critical of in the past, I think there's at least some upside there. And we know how successful Self's had picking off, mid-major guards, like 3-star, 4-star type guard talents, and turning them into real pieces. Devontae Graham, Frank Mason, DeJuan Harris. So, I mean, I think there's real reason to believe in, like, Zeke Mayo or even Diggy Coit making a little bit of jump here.
Those guys all took time, though. That's
true.
They were in the oven for a while.
As many of those, there's a Timberlake, there's a Yasufu, guys who don't even play that transfer in as high scorers. That's why I'm a little skeptical about Mayo. I love Mayo. Covered the Summit for years when he was there, but I'm not sure. I believe Self saying
he's got a lot of off-season buzz.
Self is
I heard
really
that
pumping
too.
him up.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Is that hype by the coach? We hear a lot of the coach speak all the time, or is it real? We'll see, I suppose, very soon.
It kind of feels a little like when people fall in love with the sexy Duke roster and forget that Virginia just wins the league every year. Like, it's obviously not the case anymore, but the 6 years where Virginia won it every season, Duke got picked preseason. Like, let's not overthink this. Houston, I think, is the best team. Kansas is the sexy blue blood. I will ride with Houston.
I'm going Houston. I lied. I'm going Houston. Yeah,
there
Houston's
we go.
We got
him.
Wow.
We got him.
Growth,
change, development.
I think my theme, though, Kai, is there's a much better chance that people think that a team not named Houston or Kansas wins this league.
There's 5 top 10 teams.
Like, legit, I think I agree.
There might be 3 top 5 teams with Iowa State. Defense, elite, once again, the clones. Yes, we were talking about the clones in the same conversation as Houston and Kansas. Speaks volumes about how Otzelberger has built this program. Taman Lipsey, All-American candidate. Keyshawn Gilbert, All-League player in the Big 12, already will be again. Momcilovic, sophomore leap coming after a great freshman year. And they get Curtis Jones back, too. I think is a really underrated, nice complement piece for them in the backcourt. Brilliant addition, Matt, with Justin Jefferson coming in from St. Mary's. He fits
Jordan Jefferson.
Jordan Jefferson, excuse me. He fits in like I'm NFL in my head. He fits in like a glove. You have Jackson and Chatfield coming in for a little more size. I also really like Nate Heisey coming in from Northern Iowa.
Agree.
Bench shooter, bench scorer. I just trust Otzelberger and this program at the current state. Like Houston, the defense is pretty much a lock to be top 3. This could be a top 5 team.
Yeah, very similar to Houston, right? It's a system angle. It's an institutional success and with enough continuity. And I think maybe the best portal addition in the entire conference in Josh Jefferson from a fit perspective, just like what he brings you at that 4 spot, defensive menace, versatility offensively, I can kind of play through him even. He was awesome at St. Mary's. St. Mary's missed him badly when he went out last season. The guards have always been like reluctant to like fully believe that Lipsy and Gilbert are as good as they are, Jim. But whenever I watch, I'm like, yeah, okay, they're really good. And then we saw the leap that Milan laid last year. Yeah, this team's awesome. I've been kind of behind the Iowa State curve. This year, I'm not going to be behind it. I'm just going to get out in front of it. I'm going to buy the hype, top 5. And I think very, very close to Houston and Kansas. I think probably closer than some who have KU 1 or Houston 1.
Yeah, I could fully see them being better than Kansas and toyed with ranking them ahead of them in the Big 12. I did not ultimately have Kansas 2, Iowa State 3 also. But yeah, like everything that Iowa State was awesome at last year seems fully sustainable year over year to me. Like they're going to turn people over like crazy with Lipsy, Gilbert, and Cujo, Curtis Jones. You get a little bit more offensive pop from Momcilovic continuing to evolve. As Matt said, the fit with Jefferson is ludicrously good. Like he completely cleans the defensive glass. He can switch probably 1 through 5 in some lineups. Like I think he can guard just about every single position. Jackson dominates the glass. You got good depth, both backcourt and front court with a couple upside gambles. It just all makes sense to me for what TJ Otzelberger wants to accomplish. You've got a coach, a point guard that get along great. They seem pretty high floor to me. The only real question is like, how high is the ceiling? And it might be high enough to ascend towards national title good if the offense comes along. So yeah, I'm very comfortable with Iowa State as like a top 6 team.
I'll give one concern. I think we're being too bullish on these guys.
Please do. Go for
Rim protection. I think Hassan Ward was one of my favorite unsung know-your-role all-star guys last year. Him and Robert Jones were amazing. But this is sort of the Houston fallacy where you say, oh, they lost a really good big guy, but you have to know the next guy coming in through is going to be just as good, right? I'm not sure if it's at Houston caliber in terms of their consistency, but I think you can't gloss over how important Hassan Ward and Robert Jones were up front to that defense.
Both those guys were really mobile, and I don't think
Ward especially. Ward was really agile. Yeah, loved it.
Yeah,
I want to make a correction. It's not Justin Jefferson. It's not Jordan Jefferson. It's Joshua Jefferson.
Joshua.
We are correcting
JJ.
That. So
Fish
apologies for that, Iowa State fans and St. Mary's fans. Arizona is where we're going next. Number 4. Controversially, I might add, I got some wait, Arizona over Baylor, bro, type of response.
Yeah, bro, what are you doing?
Hey, Ken Palm agrees. Tommy Lloyd's the man. He's the man. What has he done wrong in the regular season? Nothing. Loves an All-American. Jaden Bradley, KJ Lewis, both really high upside. Krivas, your boy Matthew, could blossom this year into one of the best bigs in the league. They fortified him with Trey Townsend and Awaka in the portal. I think the Campbell transfer Del Orso is a fine bench piece. I'm not giving him a ton of hype. I watched Campbell too much last season. We're just going to give him a little bit of hype. New freshman coming in, Carter Bryant. What does he give them? It's a little light on guard depth, Matthew, but they have 3 in the starting lineup who can rotate on the ball, so I'm not as worried about that. What will Caleb Love do in his 5th season?
He'll put up big numbies. He'll probably shoot you out of a few games too. But generally, I think we're all in the same boat that the Caleb Love saga is like at a point where I think he's undervalued because he's so tightly scrutinized. But just what he provides you in terms of production at a premium position. And defensively, by the way, like not a liability like people thought he was. Like I think he actually like really stepped up in that end last year, at least from what I saw. Kai, the depth is my concern, as you mentioned, especially in the backcourt, right? They are young off the bench at guard, Jim. If there's an injury or any sort of like a rough patch that Bradley or Love or Lewis hit, which I don't think there will be because I love that trio for the record. That's why I like the Del Orso get, like at least he's just sort of a plug and play piece at the, coming off the pine. But I still worry, like, man, it's that's about it in terms of guards. Like if you take one of those four away, you're gonna have to really do some lineup adjustment and play big, which they can, but it's young, right? Then you're into freshmen and some of your national guys, and we know it's just not a recipe for success in today's day and age.
Yeah, I wrote that same thing down. They're one guard injury away from that top three, from being like really shaky, dicey. I am not a Del Orso guy at this level. I'm a little discouraged. If he's doing anything besides catch and shoot, he's just so thin. I think he's gonna be a defensive liability. He's not a Pelle Larsson type. He is not as physical
Or
and as much of
explosive.
a gritty fighter. Or explosive. Agreed. As Larsson was. I think they're going to be a regular season juggernaut again, though. They just have a defined style. They play fast. They barrage the rim in transition. They're huge. Their front court is, we didn't even barely mention Carter Bryant in that rotation that they have up front. So they're going to be elite in those aspects again. But your reliance in transition and reliance on Love in the postseason has me a little skeptical. His season last year was so weird. He had a stretch of 11 out of 12 games where he had like a 113 O rating or better. And then in 5 of the last 6 games, he just kind of vanished and couldn't make a shot. And it was like, oh yeah, this is the bad side of the card with Caleb
Yeah.
Love, the flip side of the coin. Can he stay more consistent? He's a 5th-year guy. It just seems like he is what he is in terms of inconsistency. So he's probably going to be a first team all conference guy again, Kai. But I think between him and the style, the postseason upside holds a little bit of limitation.
Yeah, poor Tommy. Hope he gets over the hump soon at Arizona. Good guy. Great guy. Baylor, number 5, still in Tier 1. Don't worry, Baylor fans. You're still an elite team in the country. I see, again, a ton of people calling them a surefire top 10. I've seen some call them even top 5. I'm a little worried about the assistant drain, fellas. Tang leaving tanked the defense. You can see almost a straight line to where he left and their defensive struggles. Now, there's player personnel involved in that as well, for sure. John Jacobs is now gone, an offensive guru now coaching FAU, Matt's current sweater and pennant in the background. Still have tons of talent. Edgecombe, again, he could be the real deal. He's another Baylor freshman that's going to be awesome. Roach and O'Meara are legit all-league caliber ads, Jim, but how are they going to be on the defensive end? O'Meara specifically is a big question mark for me, and the depth just is a little concerning. There's injury concerns in the roster. Langston Love and Celestine have both had injuries during their college career. I'm a little bit skeptical on Baylor.
Yeah, I love Langston, but that
Yeah.
man is injury prone, unfortunately.
Gotta
It
stay healthy.
stinks.
Yeah.
It's hard to fully rely on him. And yeah, the defense, I don't know. Whenever I watch, I've said it before, they switch unnecessarily and they put themselves in bad positions where they end up in rotations or bad matchups. And that feels like a little not having Tang around to make them a little bit more disciplined. It's like they heard the concept of switching and were like, let's just do it. And aren't forgetting that like you don't have to every time. And they mixed in some more of the zone last year. It worked sometimes, others it didn't. I don't know. They're a little bit bigger in the backcourt with Edgecombe. Roach is maybe not tiny. So maybe that's helpful. And I know some Baylor fans are propping up the idea that they'll play O'Meara and Ojinmuna together, which makes me a little nervous. I don't love that. I don't think that really solves everything defensively. It's guys that maybe still struggle in space. But how much do I care when I know the offense is going to be like top 10 good, maybe top 5? Jacobs leaving for FAU maybe is a concern there, but these guards can light it up. They can shoot. You add Edgecombe. I love Rob Wright, the incoming freshman from Montverde. He's kind of my little crush in this incoming class. His only issue is size. It's kind of like Shellstad last year for me. So there's enough here, Matt, offensively that I'm pretty confident they're top 10. I do have them over Arizona. I'll join the Baylor Brigade there saying, what are you doing, bro, to Kai? But there's definitely concerns with the defense and the upside. If they're not going to be a top 70 defense, even a top 50 defense, they're going to be limited with what they can accomplish in the postseason.
Yeah, I guess the depth is probably better than we're giving it credit for because it's just younger, but it's talented. I mean, they have 2, I think, top 50 kids coming off the bench who I don't even know much about. Robert Wright and
I think Jim mentioned Wright's a stud.
Yeah,
Wright's going to be great.
Wright's
Okay.
awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
So then I will go to bat for Rob Wright.
The fact that so add that to him and Edgecombe. The fact that I'm so certain that the freshmen are going to be really good keeps me higher on them. But I was I think I ranked them 18th in our initial rankings. Like I do I do feel like the depth outside of that and the defensive concerns are pretty alarming to me. With Roach and Omir and the unprovenness of Ojowana up front, and Celestine, is he just a minutes
Yeah.
eater?
I don't know about
I don't know.
Celestine.
It does
Apparently
feel
has looked
thin.
very good this offseason, Celestine. There's the whispers from, I think,
If they
Baylor
can lean
fans.
heavily on their top 6 or 7, I think they'll find, right? Like elite potentially because of the offensive talent and what they have. And maybe they can patch together with some intelligence, some of the defensive quirks. But you mentioned the brain drain, Kai, and we'll see. I think that'll be that could be exposed this year. But I also, all the Baylor folks in the Discord were pretty plugged in about a lot of the defensive changes they're making this. I think they're trying to address it. They understand it's a potential weakness. I like they're getting out in front of it. Still, personnel wise, I have concerns.
Omir and Roach are great transfers in the whole scheme. I think they're both overrated right now and how good they are.
Totally. Yes.
In the portal.
Totally agree.
Everyone gets better when they enter the portal.
Yeah.
Everyone gets better.
People see those names and like, oh, how can they be bad? Well, gosh, Omir's team sucked last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they sucked. They were injured for sure. But anyways, Baylor, still very good. Don't let my pessimism get you down. They're tier 1.
Kai, can Baylor win a national title?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they can.
Okay.
Their defense isn't good enough. That's the long and short of it.
Man, I feel like they do have a good. I think their ceiling is. I don't know. I'm pretty wide range of outcomes. I will say that. I think it's a very wide. Even though Baylor's been pretty consistently top 10-ish, I do think this year feels like a much wider spectrum of destinies.
All right, let's go to tier 2. Still very good. This league is awesome. Texas Tech, man. I'm shocked they're not in the AP top 25 poll. What is
that about?
That was a huge omission. People are complaining about Xavier as they should, but Texas Tech, dude, they should be right in there too. Grant McCaslin's the man. We have waxed poetically about him time and time again on this podcast. The guys they bring back, their wing core, McMillan, Williams, Cambridge, Walton. That is a ton of shooting coming back in that wing core. All 4 of those guys can light it up. They're all pretty big. I'm a huge fan of what they bring back. I think Elijah Hawkins coming in from Minnesota, a very good table setter. Not as dynamic of a scorer, Matthew. Maybe that's the one like nitpick as Pops Isaacs. Will the offense kind of stall sometimes? That I would say a dynamic creator that can also get his own offense. I think Hawkins is more a table setter, but JT Toppin is kind of the answer to. Don't worry, he's first team all conference good in this league. He's the best, one of the best ads in the country. And McCaslin, of course, being smart, bringing Federico in as well. I think they really improve on defense, which has been McCaslin's bread and butter at North Texas in previous years.
Yeah, the front line's all. I mean, Federico and Toppin, like that's just 1-2. I don't know if I like a front line in terms of versatility. Any other front line in this league better than that. I mean, apologies to Houston, obviously, but that is an awesome front line. I worry, Jim, that the hype's gotten so far that I pushed this team into like the tier 1, which I'll say, Kai, I do think this is a tier 1 team, but I'm starting to question myself as maybe I've gotten a little too excited.
Yeah.
Right. You got this sort of the shooting, spacing offensively with these freak-a-leak athletes up front, rim runners, shot blockers. I think that translates to at least a better shot selection than last season. That was a problem. I think sometimes better shots, higher quality shots this year. I would expect.
Isaac's shot selection, I feel like it was kind of like had to shoot that stuff.
Yeah, it's not like McMillan or Walton was going to go create something.
That's my only question.
I think Hawkins helps, and I think Overton, Jim, I know you like him too. I think he's going to factor into the creation conundrum here.
Yep, agreed there. This team can play big or small and not really sacrifice like physicality or shooting. Like they don't, because of Toppin's versatility, because of Darian Williams' versatility. I like the fact that they can kind of adapt their lineup to what they need to play against. And the one name I want to make sure we mention too is Christian Andersen. He's played for Germany in the FIBA event this offseason. Germany took first. He averaged 20 points and 5 assists. Euro Prospects ranks him ahead of Kasparos Jekusionis, who everyone is like, oh my God, he's incredible. They were equally productive in the same FIBA event, and Anderson's team was better. I think he has less of an opportunity to go be a stud because of the returning experience that Texas Tech has, but I think he could be this little sprinkled in variable that boosts the backcourt, gives it a little bit more upside to go with the shooting of the guys that you both mentioned. Hawkins' incredible passing. He's led the conference in assist rate at every season he's been in college. So I know he's going to be a great passer. But I think you add in Anderson to what else they have on that roster. I love Texas Tech. I think they're like top 15, maybe closer. I have Arizona closer to Texas Tech than Arizona is to Baylor. I think Tech rocks.
Does he goes by Jazz?
I think he might also go by Jazz.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just checking. Yeah.
Wait, there's a Christian Anderson and a Jazz Anderson, right? And there are two Andersons.
There might only be one. It might be incorrect in my roster
Texas
sheet. I
Tech.
don't know.
No, I checked on the roster. I looked at the Big 12 2 weeks. Anyway, we'll confirm, folks. Continue, Kyle.
Okay. That's enough on Texas Tech. A great team once again.
Yeah, it's Jazz Henderson. That's
Because Anderson. Okay, yeah, I'm looking at it now. Anderson went to Oak Hill, so I've heard.
Oh.
Yeah, I have heard hype about him. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes. Christian Anderson. Yes. Okay. Now we're clear. Two name gaps. We don't usually get that in our.
It's 7 a.m. Kai.
Yeah.
Had our coffee.
Cincinnati, number 7. I love this team. I love this team. If the Big 12 wasn't so good, they wouldn't be 7th, but here they are. The Big 12's that good. Extremely balanced. You brought back almost everybody from last season. Very, very old backcourt with Thomas, Skillings, Lukosius, plus a little upside sprinkle in Jizzle James. And we've talked about it during the offseason. Dylan Mitchell being one of the best ads in the country just for fit alone. They needed somebody of his archetype, and guess what? They got him in Mitchell. Wes Miller's done a great job kind of rebuilding the program up. They have depth, Jim. They have coaching. They don't have any stars, at least right now. Does that matter, or are they just too balanced?
I don't know if it matters. Maybe for their ultimate ceiling, you'd like a guy to emerge and become a little more of a go-to threat, somebody that the other team has to game plan around and can help elevate his teammates offensively. Perhaps that's Jizzle James as a sophomore. Perhaps it ends up being Day Thomas, second year out of junior college. We typically see guys make a leap. The highly regarded JUCO guys, their second year out. But yeah, Dylan Mitchell backfilling John Newman is ridiculous from a perimeter defender standpoint. They've got a dominant rim protector in Aziz Bendago. You've got gamers, Connor Hickman, Seamus Lukosius. Those guys are gamers. They'll make a big shot. They're not going to be intimidated by physicality or the moment. So, and even a little bit of upside. If you get a healthy CJ Frederick, boom, you suddenly have one of the best shooters in the country. So, Matt, I think this team makes a ton of sense. Now, where they finished last year, and does that make them a top 20 team? I think that's a little strong of a leap, but I think they're really high floor and fully expect them to be in the NCAA tournament in like the 7 to 10 seed range is where I land with them. Maybe 6 to 9 seed range.
I agree. I think why they're, I guess I have the same narrative and vibes as I do with Texas Tech. Like I love them, but I'm worried, like, as I look at some of my projections, and I feel like they're almost within that tier 1. And I actually do think since he's closer to tier 1 than tier 2, if I'm comparing Kai's two groups here, because the defensive floor is so high. I think this team could be maybe the 3rd best defense in the league. You probably can't put them over Houston or Iowa State, let's be honest. But the offensive jump, I think you'll see from those guards. Got some shooting with Lukosius. I think he really came into his own as a quasi creator, but also shot maker when you needed him. Would love to see CJ Frederick healthy for a full year and making shots at a high rate. I know he's been kind of in and out, whack-a-mole with his production. Then you got Hickman, who was a stud point guard at Bradley. They're just a lot of depth. I think that's, again, depth, high floor, defensive backbone. Offense could be a little bit hit or miss, as we've seen in spurts with Cincy against big-time competition. They lost some close games because they couldn't convert in big possessions last year. That's sort of the needle mover in terms of, are they a tournament team and a high seed, or are they a bubble team, NIT team this year? I think they're a tournament team, though, pretty easily.
This team's surefire tournament team for me. Yeah, I think one more point. Day Thomas, he's listed as a senior. Yes, it's his second year of Division I, though. He came from the JUCO ranks. I think he has a lot left in the tank to show. I think he's very, very talented. So a little more upside too with him.
Yeah, Matt, the close games are big. Like they went 7-11 in the Big 12 last year against the 11th.
So many close games.
Strength of schedule, imbalance. Like they didn't even play the Murderers Row. They've got to win some close ones this year. That's how you get in the tournament.
Indeed, you do. Number 8, Kansas State. The first kind of flip-flop, if you want, with Ken Palm's preseason. He has BYU very high this season in the old algorithm. We'll talk about BYU in a second. K-State. I'm a Tang believer. It's a brand new team, though. Only Ingasan, if I'm going to say his name. I'm not sure if that's even right.
Ingison.
I think it's just Gassan.
Gassan,
just
yeah.
Gassan.
The end is
Gassan.
first
yeah.
Gassan is back. That's it. Tang flipped his entire roster. Doug McDaniel is playing point, former Michigan player who, for some reason, can play in road games for a bit at Michigan. No reason given. I don't think.
That was academics, I think.
Oh, it was academics. Okay.
Didn't like to fly.
But
Didn't like to fly.
He was John Madden. He couldn't.
John Madden.
Coleman Hawkins is the shiny new piece, I suppose, and everyone's giving him a lot of hype coming in from Illinois. He's a great offensive player. Is he healthy again enough to play on the defensive end? A bit of a liability last year for Illinois when he was defending ball screens when he's playing the five. Tang raved about Max Jones coming in from Fullerton. That excites me a lot if he's actually that good. I know Hausen is a fantastic shooter. I watched him at Villanova. What do they get from Onyenso? How does a Chor look at this level, Matthew? The depth is solid. There's smatterings of upside. It's a very veteran team. And of course, Jerome Tang is 12-0 in overtime. So, benefit of the doubt.
That's right. So, yeah, if he can't lose in OT, then that's an extra probably 1.5 or 2 if you're projecting the season. Good point, Mr. McKeon. Jim, I first thought this team was too much of an all-star team. Still might be the case, but as I look at sort of the strengths, weaknesses of the individual parts, I do think they can kind of hide some of the inefficiencies of each player at their, like Max Jones, like took some stupid mid-range, like a little too mid-rangey, not a good finisher at the rim. He can shoot, right? He's athletic. I think you can move him more as you can trim the fat of his game when you have a guy like Doug McDaniel running the show at the point in that system. And Gassan is like one of my all-time favorite know your role all-star guys. I think he's going to actually be a really important piece to this, because I think you're going to have some volatility with guys like Coleman Hawkins and Onyesu, guys who are obviously older, but they're not been the most consistent. Hawkins, if he wants to jack 10 threes and he might go 1 of 10, like you sort of have to be able to have some moving parts to pivot around that. A Chor obviously is going to be a huge part of that equation as well. Again, I started sour. I've come around to the this team could actually fit, even though it looks like an all-star team on paper.
Yeah, there's weird lineup questions with the 3 bigs that they're potentially going to play, because the roster just ended up being a little tilted. They had recruited a front court, and then Coleman Hawkins was still available, and they dropped the giant $2 million bag for him. And then, good problem to have. Let's figure out how to get our best players on the court together. But that is going to be maybe a little bit of a clunky fit. Matt, the phrase keeping up with the Joneses. I'm wondering if the Joneses can keep up with the Big 12. I'm not a huge fan of either guy. Max
CJ.
Jones was a chucker for a bad team. CJ was kind of just a guy for a bad team. Not thrilled about them. Hausen's a little bit of a one-way player. I think he hurts them defensively, but it sounds like David Castillo rocks. And what I've seen of him is pretty darn impressive too. So the fact that you've got a little bit more of a security blanket, he is a freshman, so perhaps he's not going to be like a consistent stud, but he's got a good gear that should help make up for any potential weaknesses that the Jones-Hausen trio has. There's enough here, Kai, and Tang and Malagi, the defensive coordinator.
Malagi. Yes.
Uric Malagi. I think there's enough defensive backbone and smarts that keeps the floor high-ish. I'm a little worried about Doug because Tyler Perry won everywhere. That guy is a good player, and it didn't work last year. So I don't think it's an automatic Tang fixes point guards situation the way he did with Noel. But McDaniel's lightning fast. He can shoot. Perhaps he is the maestro that they need.
Good call on Castillo. I do really like him on tape. Look great.
I had him in my notes as well, and I forgot I did. So
Hawkins playing the 3 really.
That's why there's 3 of us, boys. That's why there's 3 of us.
Hawkins playing the 3 really worries me.
Yes.
I don't think that's going to be great, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right, BYU. Mark Pope is at Kentucky. BYU now hires Kevin Young. He's like 42 years old. He was the highest paid assistant in the NBA. He has G League coaching experience, I believe, but no college experience. He's brand new here. His reputation is recruiting, and my gosh, he's doing it. I mean, he's in the running for AJ Debinsa, right? It's kind of ridiculous that he's getting caliber players of what he's getting at BYU already.
BYU got that money, Kai.
They got money.
They have money.
He said he wants to play a spaced-out offense, 5-out attack, assume up-tempo, no surprises there with his pro background. Got a nice core back, really underrated core in Hall, Nell, Saunders, Traore, plus Dawson Baker, who Matt loved at UC Irvine. He was hurt most of the year last season. And then Maywat Mag, Kita coming in from Utah, great ads. The ceiling might depend on Igor Demin, who's getting a ton of hype this season, European prospect recruit. He does look really good on film. And Matt, he's a 6'9" guard who can handle the ball. I believe it. I don't know if he's a lottery pick already because these guys get hyped to the moon. But if he's good, BYU could be very, very good. I don't buy top 20 right now, but very, very in the mix for a tournament.
I buy ceiling top 20. This is the most eclectic roster on the entire. It's just like you have kind of Hall and Nell, who are two of the engines of last year's team, but then you add in um, Keita to a healthy Traore, and you have two bullies up front who can score. They're gritty, and then you have Mawad on the wing, and you have it's a very diverse roster, but there also is a lot of injury risks here, Jim, which kind of concerns me. There's just like too much to look at when I look at the roster, too many question marks. I just need to kind of like look at this roster in a month again, look at like a neater pecking order, and then make my assessment because I have no clue how the, guys 4 through 8 in the depth chart or rotation really shake out. And again, a lot of that does depend on health, and there are many, many question marks in that domain with this group.
Yeah, health and like this Cannon Catchings, how does he buy in?
Head
Like,
case,
does it matter?
yeah,
I mean,
we'll
they've
see.
got a bunch of bites at the apple. The roster is deep and has options. Like Matt says, yeah, let's maybe reassess once we see who the actual rotation is. Last year's team, I think, was, as much as I love them and was hyping them in the preseason, maybe a little overrated. Like if you filter Bart Torvik for Q2 games only, they were 11-11, or Q2 and higher. 11-11, 35th in the country. They inflated by blowing the hell out of teams in the mountains. Some teams in really bad travel spots they beat by like 50 points. That I think helped elevate their KenPom rankings. So I think the baseline that you're looking at, if you're using last year's 18th finish, it should actually be a little bit lower. And they lose the best passing big man in the country, their best high volume shooter, and this floor spacing four that often made them hard to guard. Kai, which coach was it that was like, oh my God, Noah Waterman? Was it Sampson?
Oh, it was Samson. Yeah.
Samson.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, well, yeah, that guy, what a freak. He'll just launch. So they're a little more conventional now. If you play Maywat Mag at the four, if you try to shove those two centers together with Traore and Keita, and it's a coach who has no experience doing all of the other things that go into being a college basketball coach. We've had a couple AMAs where the guys are like, it's a CEO job. Coaching is only a small part of it. So perhaps there is a learning curve for Kevin Young. And Demon played Real Madrid 2 in Spain. It wasn't like he was playing pros.
Yeah,
I
right.
hate when guys
That's a
get
good point.
hyped of that, of like, oh, he's a professional over there. He was playing like the second tier. He's basically playing in a high level high school.
It's the same with the
as
JUCO hype. You got to check what level was it, right? What division? Yeah.
Yeah.
Different.
So I think that's worth mentioning. He's obviously like toolsy, but I don't know, Kai. I think BYU's pretty wideish range of outcomes. And I think some people would disagree considering what they brought back, that it would be a high floor. I think it's a little wider given the coach question, the reliance on Demon, et cetera.
Yeah, I think Mark Pope's being very underrated and Kevin Young's being very overrated right now. Kevin Young could be a great coach. We have no idea at this level at college. Plenty of coaches have failed at switching levels. It's not a guarantee. And Mark Pope was very, very good. Very, very good. All right, TCU, number 10, a team that I kind of dropped, honestly. The more I looked at them, I've cooled on them as the summers progressed. The Frankie Collins and Noah Reynolds backcourt is kind of giving me vibes. The talent, in my opinion, doesn't really stack with the other 9 teams ahead of them. Who's the star? You have some solid transfers and guys coming back like White, Wenzel, Uday, Alette. It's just not that enticing to me. The defense could be really good, but you have negatives in the defensive lineup like Reynolds and maybe even Wenzel. Your offense, shooting is a question. Reynolds is not really that great of a shooter, Matthew, not a high volume guy. And we know Frankie Collins is not a shooter. The depth is pretty young. It's pretty inexperienced. But you trust Jamie Dixon. I just think this team is down a few notches from the years prior. 10th is where I have them, above the muck of the bottom tier.
Yeah, I think Dixon's in a little bit of kind of stuck in a pickle, stuck in no man's land. You can tell he's still trying to do some of the
Identity
recruit
crisis?
from within.
Kinda
Yeah, identity
called that.
crisis. Thank you. Yeah. Like a lot, I have 4 4 stars. I think he does want to do it the old. He is an old school guy. He wants to develop talent. He wants to do some organic, homegrown harvesting of guys that he brought in. But he's like, well, I mean, I know I can't win doing that, so I kind of have to patch over some roster portal dudes. And I think the guys he brought in are sort of indicative of like, oh yeah, I need to go get some guys as well to sort of smooth the experience transition gap here. And I mean, Frankie Collins, he probably better than I thought last year, honestly, at Arizona State. That was a dysfunctional type of team in many, many ways. So maybe he does pop here. Traz White's a fun player. I don't know how he works with the Big 12. I'm just going to say it up front. Really fun player. I don't think he's too tweenery. Alette, it just did nothing but lose last season. I know it was a weird situation. And Reynolds is obviously great. So, I mean, maybe he's sort of the beacon of
At
hope.
this level, his stats are not good against tier A and B.
I know. I still think he's a power conference player. I loved him at Wisconsin. I loved him going to Green Bay. I think he can rise here. But still, that's my point. Like it's a lot of. I think what you said goes to my point. All the eggs are sort of shifting toward the Noah Reynolds basket. I don't love that for Jamie Dixon, which is a guy who built his team on old deep rosters the last few years.
Yeah, and when I say identity crisis too, Matt, like he sped up in transition last 2 years, but he had like legit guards, and this roster makes a little more sense for running like crazy. You've got
Collins
like 1 through 4. Like Collins is a speedster, Reynolds is a pretty steady second ball handler you put next to him. Trezarian White's going to be terrific in transition. He's a great downhill player. But it's a lot like thinner, just physically.
Yeah.
They didn't, they would have Micah Peavy and Jacoby Coles and Emmanuel Miller.
Yeah, they had to get off the bus team last year. Totally. Yes.
Yeah, those guys just like wielded sledgehammers in the paint, and it was not fun to play against them. Now, like Uday's a beast per minute wise, and I think scaling him up into a bigger role, he'll actually look pretty good. But there's a lot of question marks off the bench, some upside, sure, but definite question marks with Posey, with Olet. I don't know. Like he could pop, or he could be like a complete disaster at this level. So Kai, I have also soured on them in our top 40 rankings. I was the high guy, and I have slowly but surely dropped them to where you have them 10th. I just think there's like a scary floor for this team. If it doesn't mesh with a lack of physicality and a potential lack of shooting, like how do you square those two things in the Big 12?
Like they could easily end up in the 14-16 range, honestly, in the Big 12. I think Dixon's too good for that, but
yes,
I think it could happen. I would not have them top 50 currently, and we had them top 40 right now in our countdown.
Yeah, they could make the tournament, but they could also drop off because of all the newness to the roster and almost to the style. Like there's wide range of outcomes.
Agreed. Okay, let's get into the muck, fellas. Again, choose your own adventure in this group, 11 through 16. I had a really hard time picking the last place team in this league. I had a hard time picking the entire order here. I chose, we'll talk about them. West Virginia, number 11 is what I went with. Again, this team could be 15-16. I'm a believer in Darian DeVries. He did a great job at Drake. His son, Tucker, is an all-conference caliber player at this level. I'm confident in it. Eye test, performance, it all passes for me for Tucker DeVries. He's the first, I think, back-to-back Missouri Valley Player of the Year since, like, it's been a long time. Might even be Bird. It's been a ridiculous amount of time. Javon Small, very good. Never played on a good team. Check out this stat, fellas, for Eduardo Andre, Toby Okani, Small, and Jaden Stone combined. 177 and 274. 39% win percentage for their careers in college, and that's with Stone getting the Grand Canyon benefit. They're not winning.
That's like the Jonah Hill to Billy Bean. Like, look at these players. They're all like super productive and have great stats. Their flaw, they played for shit teams.
It's very worrisome. Matt Okani, a guy who played for UIC, I think he's in over his head offensively at this level. He can defend every position. He's not an offensive player. Could Joe Yesufu be the key, the revival piece? He's thrived under DeVries before. Can he do well here? Sincere Harris has the pedigree. It's a weird team, in summary, Matthew.
It is. Yeah, I like the Yesufu reunion with DeVries, but Javon Small needs the ball in his hands a lot. Like, I think he's really good. Very, very good. I think he was one of the most impactful on-off guys last season in the Big 12, which is sort of skewed because Oklahoma State sucked. Easy to look good when you play for a bad team, if you're really good. That said, I mean,
it's hard to look good and on-off if you play for a bad team.
Well, because I would think without you, really, maybe you're right. I guess that could go both ways. Anyway, he's really good. A lot hinges on him and DeVries. I feel like this feels like a two-man team. In the supporting cast, I have questions mark. The thing you have to remember is that this team will play dogged defense, Jim, and I think will be more competitive than people think, even though you can question the roster talent, some of the losing traits that Kai mentioned. But I think this team will defend, and they will give themselves a chance in every game. And I can see West Virginia mucking their way to like a 7-11 record. Or sorry, is it 20 games? Yeah, 20 games. like
I
8
don't
and
actually know if
12
they're
or
playing
something.
20 or 18 this year in Big 12.
I think it
I will
is.
tell you. I'm not on a Big 12 team
It's
right now. I'm looking
20.
at somebody
Yeah,
else's stats. Yeah,
it's
20.
20.
so
Yeah, yeah.
8 and 12. Could they
8
get
and
to?
12.
Yeah,
KenPom has 6 and 14. I could see 8 and 12 with DeVries.
yeah, I would buy that. Yeah, the defense is going to be important because that needs to be their backbone. It's typically the backbone of a DeVries team, and it's not overflowing with offensive talent. Like Small can set people up. DeVries' shot making is insane. When he gets going,
Yeah.
he can make it on anybody. Like there's clips of him going against Malavi Leons, who's like a professional level defender, and you're just like, oh, he's scoring on him like he's not even there. So excited to watch him against a higher level of competition just to get that opportunity. And man, Okani's such a weird player. Like Matisse Thybulle, is that like a weird comparison for him?
Yeah,
Like
I was gonna
just
say more of like
super
a
They can't
forward.
shoot.
He's more of a forward, but no,
Thybulle
I agree,
couldn't
Jim. He
really
is a
shoot
weird
in
player.
college. I don't know.
Yeah.
He can defend every position. The interior vulnerability concerns me. I don't know if Eduardo Andre holds up in 28 minutes a game in the Big 12. So there's enough of risk, Kai, that I think you're right having them in this tier, and I have them below TCU and everybody else above them. But they're top of this group because to me they have the best player in this group and one of, if not the best coach.
That's where I landed, Jim. Yeah, one of, if not the best coach in this group and the best player. Defense, high floor, I think, for that at least that end. Okay, Arizona State, number 12. It's a hard thing to do, to trust the other Hurley. He underperforms talent constantly at Arizona State. This roster is, again, it feels like he doesn't really think about fit when he gets teams. He just tries to accumulate talent, and that's what Hurley kind of does. I think he did it again. The Alston Mason, BJ Freeman ads really don't excite me, and their fit together is strange. It's like empty calories, in my opinion. The ball sharing could be weird. Jihad from Ball State is not a Big 12 player, in my opinion, at least a competitive one.
I think you could look at Peyton Sparks at Indiana for the
Yeah.
comp there.
And then the keys will be the freshmen, Acquaintance and Sannon, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Major recruits, but again, Hurley has had better recruits and has failed to live up to expectations. The bench is non-existent. Jim, it's again a talented team, but one that could fall to the depths of this league.
Yeah, I think it's the backcourt fit is bizarre. Like two guys that really excel with the ball in Freeman and Mason, and then Adam Miller wants to shoot the ball. That's what he's out there for. That's his goal in life. Quaintance is like one of the youngest guys in the entire class. Like he's younger than Flag. He can't even go pro next year. That really concerns me if you're going to big time bank on that guy to live in the paint. And his recruitment was weird where her dad was just like coordinating NIL offers and he was a hired mercenary gun.
Yeah.
I didn't like how that played out. It doesn't give me great vibes for him. But the word on Sannon is really, really strong. He flipped from Arizona to ASU, and now he's maybe going to get more touches if he can elbow out Mason, Miller, Freeman for some opportunities. But I don't love the depth. I am not an Austin Nunez guy at all. He can stay on TikTok. That's fine with me. I think that's where he lives. Matt, I don't trust Bobby Hurley to elevate talent. Maybe Dan should let him have his staff for a year and just see how it goes. Send
be
Luke
nice,
Murray and
just a one-year
Kamani
rental.
to Tempe and see what happens. I would love to see that.
Yeah, Hurley to me is when he committed to like going older and grittier and not as sexy. I thought that's when he won, right? That was his best year. That was the 2023 year. Yeah, 2 year. I'm looking. Yep. So it was the 2023 year. They're 55th in KenPom, 11-9 in the Pac-12, 23 and 13
Washington,
overall.
right?
Warren Washington was the anchor. They had the Cambridge Twins. Like it was a defensively built team. But this is like kind of swerving back to like the Marcus Bagley, where they had some young talent, but it just was like a lot of hype and no substance. And I do worry that this roster feels more like that, like a cobbled together group where they're, it sounds like he's trying to kind of go back to the old guard U identity in a sorts, like this more of a perimeter oriented type team. Those teams were fun, but even at their absolute apex, they didn't like win a ton. Unless you had Remy Martin or who was his backcourt mates when they really peaked in
Trey Holder,
18 or 19.
Shannon Evans.
It's Shannon Evans and Holder. Yeah. So I just don't think that we'll see. Again, we'll see. But I wish that 2023 blueprint, Kai, that Hurley would have just tried to replicate that every year. But it's not as fun, and I get it.
I have them 15th.
I think that's fine. I
okay.
thought about dropping them down that low, honestly. He has one top 50 finish in his KenPom history, Bobby Hurley, and they were 49th.
That was the year they got to number 1 in the country, or
I think
almost.
it was. Yeah, and they ended
They
up
beat KU at KU, and they were 12-0, and
8
then
and 10
finished
in the
20 and
Pac-12.
12, and
Yeah,
yeah,
ridiculous, right? Yeah, they were
lost to
number one in the
Syracuse in
country.
the tournament. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we move on. UCF, number 13, impossible team to rate because it's one of the weirdest roster constructions in the entire country. Mikey Williams was arrested in March. Benny Williams was dismissed from Syracuse. Dior Johnson pled guilty to a misdemeanor. Keyshawn Hall, 3 high schools, and now he's on his 3rd college.
And arguably quit on George Mason.
That is a weird choice to bring in those type of players. Now, maybe Johnny Dawkins saw them as discounts in the portal and said, okay, I can fix them and I can mold them into a team. And maybe that's a good route. Maybe that'll end up looking smart because the talent of those guys is real. It's definitely real. And you have Sellers and Darius Johnson coming back, a rock steady 1 and 2. If it wasn't for the chemistry questions I have with this team, I would have them higher, like maybe even 11th. But I just can't get over the roster construction.
Yeah, I think the talent is 11th, or yeah, you can make it definitely a case this is more talented than TCU at this point. But it could explode. This could be a chemistry experiment that just goes nuts, erupts in your face. Now, maybe it's good enough that there's like 9 guys that can play. So if 2 of them you have to kick to the curb, you can circle the wagons with the 7 that actually belong there and win that way. And because, like you said, Johnson and Sellers are legitimate Big 12 players, and this is a hard team to play against. They were last year. Like going into UCF, a lot of teams had troubles with that. I remember they beat Kansas early on. It was like, oh, UCF's going to be feisty in the Big 12 too. This doesn't seem like it's a fun team to play against. Hall is talented. Benny Williams, Matt used to love that guy, but
I don't think I do anymore.
No, okay, you've given up.
I think I've given up.
Yeah,
I think I've given up.
Ivy Curry is also like a shot maker, but I don't know. Yeah, do I really want him playing and taking the ball from Johnson and Sellers, playing with those guys? I don't know. So, Matt, it is one of the widest ranges of outcomes, basically because I think the floor is so chasmly low. This could end up being like it bottom falls out and Johnny Dawkins gets fired type season. I don't think it will, but it's in the realm of possibilities. So I'm just gonna probably stay away from this team, treat them like there's caution tape around them, like one of Mikey Williams' crime scenes, and I'll just stay away.
Oh, no.
The veteran backcourt is good, and it's good because I think they take care of the ball. I think it's like sort of underrated. They pressure the ball. They were, I think, top 4 in forcing turnovers last season. They were 1st in block rate. It was a disruptive event, havoc creating defense, and it was a good defense. And I think that's what kept them in games. I think the offense could look really bad, but you didn't notice it because usually they were in games because they were defending. I don't feel like the defensive. This is not a terrifying defensive team to me on paper, and so if you don't have that, where do you fall back on? So I think this is the lowest floor clearly in the Big 12. I looked at it again this morning. I think this is the worst team in the Big 12 this year. I think this team finishes last.
Wow. Yeah, I guess they don't have the shot blocking they had, like you said last year. 2 guys with 11% block rate. That's
Diallo basically transformed 2 separate defenses, right? San Jose State 2 years ago and UCF last year. I know they had CJ Walker, who was a big part of that, but Diallo is, that's a big loss. And I'm sorry, Kyle, we watched Rokas Josic plenty. We are familiar with his game. We are familiar with his game.
You talk about ground bound. Rokas Josic is ground
positionally sound though, Kai. Smart.
Yeah, he'll
smart.
Sure, yeah. Well, so Matt goes emphatically last place. Okay, well, let's talk about the 3 teams.
I know it hit me this morning.
Fun.
Let's talk about the 3 teams below them that I have in my standings here. Colorado, number 14. On paper, it does not look good, but Tad Boyle has a high floor, and I think there's enough there. And I think he usually performs better with less expectations. Frankly, he's kind of proven that over his coaching career. Elijah Malone, man, he's from the NAIA level. He is a monster. I think he won the best player of all like small schools, aka D2 and below award. There's an award for that. He's a monster. Like he will be a very good Big 12 player. Baskin, the D2 guy, is very good. They have a versatile piece coming in Yakimovsky from Washington State. There's just major question marks, Jim, in the backcourt. Hammond, Ruffin, is there a point guard? The depth is super light. It's another team that could finish last in this league. I would not be surprised. And I don't think the ceiling is super high.
Yeah, I want to say in the Discord, Kevin Sweeney said something like if they took a point guard, Hammond was going to transfer. To that, I say, okay, take a
Oh,
point guard.
wow. Okay.
I'm all right with that. But it seems like they're going to hand the reins to him, and he wanted to be the guy. And okay, sure. But I mean, this roster screams NIL poverty. I'm sorry, but it does. Like if you're
Mhm.
a packed or a Big 12 team taking guys from D2 and NAIA, that's the only conclusion I can have. But I'm with you, Kai. I liked what I saw from Malone. Baskin was part of that Colorado Mesa offense. Their coach is now at Cal Poly. It was basically Indiana State at the Division II level. Baskin's nowhere near the same player as Avila, but he was the same importance. Like he scored like crazy, mega efficient, was a passer despite being a big man. He can maybe be a little bit of that trigger man, and there's enough competence. Like Hammond and Ruffin are Big 12 caliber players. Jakomowski is a Big 12 caliber player. They're not stars. It's going to be a annoying team to go to Boulder and go to elevation. If you're especially like West Virginia going across the country or UCF going across the country, they're going to pick some teams off at home. I just don't think the ceiling is higher than like 10th in the conference. That's where the problem is for them, Matt. There's no ceiling to this team.
Yeah, no, low ceiling, high floor.
Low
It's funny.
ceiling,
It's
yes.
low ceiling, high floor, and it's
I don't
weird to
even
say that
think the
because they
floor is
have
high.
It's kind of low.
you. Okay, yeah, sorry, I probably say that's a middle floor. I think Boyle's he rarely stinks. He's always pretty
I
good.
agree
Even
with
when I
that.
thought he had shitty rosters, he usually had good teams.
He's also never been in the Big 12.
Yeah.
That is more of a murderer's row.
They could
Fair.
be like 150.
Totally fair.
They could be like 150, and I wouldn't be
Yep.
surprised.
Agreed.
Yeah. I do love Baskin. It's just like I can't be excited about this team because I love Trevor Baskin. Like I need to be excited about more. And so my
Yeah.
excitement's
Watch
limited
Elijah
to one
Malone.
player. I saw some Malone. It looks good. I think Baskin's going to translate better at this level. Do you agree or no?
I think Malone's their best player.
Okay.
He's 6'10" and enormous. Like I just think.
Yeah, he's big body. They need him to battle with the big boys in this league. I think Baskin's more of the like sets up guys, scores, gets shots for
It's
others.
crazy
too.
Malone only played 24 and a half minutes a game. Like,
Yeah, maybe that's a
he was
concern.
hyper productive. They were murdering teams. Maybe it's a foul trouble thing, but man, yeah, like you'd think a guy that good would be playing 30 minutes a game at any level. We'll see.
They can both shoot it. It's funny. Maybe they do like this. Yeah. I guess so. They
thing.
could start a.
He can shoot.
Yeah.
It's like
He
weird.
can.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I watched the right tape, man.
That's a league pass team. It's a league pass team. You agree with that? That's a team I'd like to tune in November and just see what it looks like.
Boyle ball's not exactly
Check it out.
exciting, but I'm curious.
I know.
how they
Just
play
those
for
two
sure.
guys. Just those two guys.
Yeah. Okay. Oklahoma State, number 15. Could be 16. They're 16 in KenPom. I just had a hard time rating Steve Lutz last. I think Steve Lutz is the man. This guy's 3 for 3 on NCAA tournament bids at Corpus Christi and Western Kentucky. He just wins. He gets Bryce Thompson back, who's huge. He's a veteran player. He's solid. And you speak about veteran. This team has like 7 fifth-year players. Like Lutz clearly had a goal to be extremely old. Now, Jaleel Brantley from LaSalle at this level, I'm not too sure about.
Khalil
Brantley, that's the third incorrect name.
We're going to have a million. It's fine.
At least he's old, and he does work in Lutz's transition / hectic pace. I think he works both. He's a really good like handsy steals guy on defense. I don't like Devo Davis. I wish Lutz wouldn't have gotten him, but he can be a good defender. All the transfers for me, Matt, are good, not great. I think Arturo Dean could be a disaster, or he could be okay. Uzmain is kind of a lunch pail big, not a needle mover. Avery's fine. It's kind of like a good, not great mix of players.
Yeah, he actually had more talent last year. I think just look at the two rosters side by side. He did.
Maybe.
Yeah, he had more talent, I think, on paper. Just go like the recruiting pedigrees of those players he had last year. I mean, I think he had like 3, 4, or 5 stars. Yeah. So this roster, he's actually a step down.
135th in KenPom. So
exactly. So I love Lutz too. It is weird that you go up. You step up in class for presumably very money, financially invested.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying, and the NIL packages they could have offered to get better players. It seems like they got almost too much quantity, Jim. I needed more quality. I love Khalil Brantley. I think a lot's on his plate because I'm not a Devo Davis guy, even at this level. Not that this is this is a Big 12 from the SEC. It's the same level. What am I saying? And then Arturo Dean, I pointed out in FIU, I thought he was a liability to that team last season. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I wish we'd have brought more guys with him. Honestly, you only brought one, and that's my concern. I think it's going to be a struggle to start.
Yeah, I don't love the idea of attempting to play at the fastest pace in the conference with a bottom three roster.
Yep.
Like that does not add up to me. And that's, Lutz has been a get up and down guy, and he said this offseason we want to play as fast as we possibly can. That's terrifying. Like I guess you have mobile bigs, that's something that's helpful. Like you don't have a lot of the like go plop yourself in the paint and turn around. Maybe that's Usman, but like Jennings is mobile, Sumnick is mobile. So there's a little bit of logic to the way he recruited, and Matt, you or Kai, you said Brantley on the ball is a menace. So is Dean. Like he's a ridiculous
Yes.
quickster.
He's like legitimately
But
one of the best steals guys in the last like 10 years in college basketball. He will get crazy steals. So
yeah, but they're gonna get mashed in the paint. They will get bludgeoned every single night on the glass, at the rim, and you're playing up and down. Like Arizona's going to beat this team by 30 points. So
Yep.
I don't like the plan right now with this current roster.
Yeah.
Kai, I have them 16th last. I'm with Ken Palm, and I outside the top 100.
hold on. I'm sorry. I just want to correct myself. I actually made a case for why Arturo Dean was way more important than the inefficiency numbers showed at FIU. So, okay, so I'm backing on Dean officially.
Okay.
I mean,
And we should probably mention Bryce Thompson. Like, he is a good player when he's healthy,
Yeah, he's
right?
good.
Don't we think?
yes, he
I feel
was
like we
hurt a
talked
lot
about all
last year,
transfers.
which
I mean, he's
important.
good.
I think he's good.
12 points a game in the Big 12. I mean, it's not nothing. I don't know.
You're right on the steals for Dean. So Dean is a career 26% three-point shooter, a career 22% turnover rate, and he's had 2 seasons of sub 91.0 ratings in Conference USA. It's just like not like a
He
lot of
he
Yeah.
hijacks your offense sometimes. That's the problem with him. He just sort of like ruins it for everyone else.
You can go through shooting numbers too, like Brantley sub 40% from the field, Devo
Yeah.
Davis 36%, Bryce Thompson sub 40, Marcellus
Newman
Avery sub
40.
40.
Yeah.
Usman's a big man and shot sub 47%. Xavier fans will probably tear their hair out hearing this name multiple times. Like there could be a little bit of a mess offensively too.
Yes, would not be surprised to see them outside the top 100. Okay, last place team, Utah, and it hurts because Craig Smith, another coach that I love, could easily be 11 or 12. Seriously, could be that high.
Yeah, I have him 12th.
It's a mess.
Yep.
He just hasn't put it together yet, Craig Smith at Utah. Injuries have not helped. His system also kind of requires continuity, has a lot of intricate motion offensively. This team has a lot of turnover. I think Carlson and Smith losses are enormous. Both those players were key. We saw when Carlson was out of the lineup how drastically it changed this team. And I just don't like the roster. I think Mira Little is unproven and has a little bit of upside, but not much. Mongolian Mike is not a Big 12 player. Auser is fine, but it's a step up in level. And the Madsen brothers are just not moving the needle for me. They're fine. It's not inspiring. Their best path, Jim, might be a tough defense because I'm not sure how they're putting up a lot of points on a nightly basis.
I think this team is huge. That's their biggest asset going forward. They're positionally big, like at basically every spot. Hunter Erickson's the smallest guy in the team. He's 6'3", and they can shoot. So like maybe you put that together with altitude, and again, they're going to be a pain to go play against at Utah. Like, we can't get much inside, and they're hot tonight, so they're making shots. That can be a little bit frustrating, but yeah, ceiling's not overly high. Like me having them 12th is probably not the rosiest end of the outcomes, but it's on the positive end of their bell curve. So Matt, yeah, they're going to have to beat teams with the length, the perimeter length, like Little and Mongolian Mike, and all their guards are long. They've got 7-footers. That's how they're going to have to win because there isn't like a bunch of off the bounce dynamism. There
No.
isn't, like I don't know. As Kai said, not a lot of continuity. Maybe I'm crazier having them 12th after what I just spouted, but I do think the size and the shooting combination at least is something for them.
Yep. I wrote down size and shooting, and that's about it. I think there's a lot of other limitations here. I don't like Ezra Azar. I've mentioned that before. I kind of wish Caleb Lohner will come back and play after his football thing, the little two-sport athlete, play some four, get some garbage minutes here.
Wow. I heard his name and the needle on my radar didn't move a single inch.
I mean,
Okay.
it's so
That's
weird.
probably
I
fair.
loved him at BYU when he played there, and then he did
He
nothing
was
at Baylor.
horrible at Baylor.
Did nothing at Baylor. Yeah.
This team really needs Miro Little to be awesome. I mean, like, really, this team took off as I thought last year with Davion Smith, and I did not think that would be a major needle mover. And then I saw it, and I was like, oh, yeah, this team needed that type of change of pace burst. And now it's like, yeah, this team feels slow. Feels like a slow
Slow's a
team.
great
Because that's not Little's
description of
game. Little's not that explosive.
No, yeah, he's very – I like him. I think
Yeah.
Baylor fans liked him coming last year. He's interesting, but he's not like he's gonna, go 0 to 90 in 2.5 seconds.
I feel like that's the word I was looking for, Matt. They're slow. This team is going to move at a
They're
glacial speed.
Molassesy.
Yeah.
But they're big.
They're big.
Okay. That does it for breakdowns. How many tournament teams do we say here, fellas? I think 9's pretty safe to say. And I'm going to say 9.
I want 9.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say 9 too. It just feels like the right cutoff where one of that top 10 is the odd man out, probably TCU or maybe BYU, but I feel very good about the top 8. So
as do I.
I'll just slot them all in. Call it 9.
It's weird having the Big 12 having some dead weight at the bottom this year. We don't see that a whole lot with this league.
It's changed.
Yeah. Tough.
Yeah, it should help it get 9 where you can accumulate a few more wins maybe for the top half, and you're not going to have to, like, if you're Cincinnati, you're not going to be 8 and 12. You're going to probably be 12 and 8 would be my guess.
Danger though in Utah and Colorado road trips, man. That could be bottom teams. True. And yeah, we'll see.
So yeah, the team's taking the elevation trip for the first time. That's terrifying.
Yes, it is. Okay, fellas, let's end the podcast with one review. And again, thank you for joining us. Next week, I think, is the SEC, so get excited for that. Our last major conference preview, I believe.
Yeah, then we got predictions and awards and opening night preview coming as we get closer to Halloween. Yep.
So exciting. Okay, here's the review. D Safety Guy, How Was It Taken is the name. Thanks, gents. Wanted to pick up a national college basketball podcast to become more educated about the game and picked this one. No regrets about the decision. Nice. He said, appreciate last week's ACC preview podcast, but as a Syracuse fan, wanted to note it was impressive how you noted their defensive struggles last season without mentioning Chris Bell's role in them. He's a terrific three-point shooter, but needs to apply greater effort to his game on both ends of the floor. Keep it up, gentlemen.
Love that little tidbit from a fan. Like, hey, that was most of the times you get the comment, it's like you weren't positive enough about this guy.
Right.
I respect that this review is you weren't quite negative enough about Chris Bell's defense. I like that. Okay, there was a comment on our YouTube from a guy that was mad about us talking about Duke making the Elite Eight because Jamal Shead got hurt. I think I'm going to try to bring it up on every podcast now. I'm going to find a way to mention it.
His point was NC State not lucky? Blah, blah, blah. Like, no, they were lucky. You have to get lucky to make the Final Four. But if you don't think Duke was fortunate to have the opposing team's best player injured, a game in which they were an underdog, I don't know really what to tell you on that.
Yeah, I'm just going to make it a bit where every time Houston comes to be like, Houston, the team that lost in the Sweet 16 to a lucky Duke team, just to twist the knife, poke him a little bit.
Right, of course. Okay, that does it. Thank you for joining us again. Subscribe, like the video. BurnerExclusives.com is where you can find all of our written previews. Every single team is on there, or will be. Cheers. Till next time. Have a great weekend.